got some coconut juice on my hands. It's a very familiar feeling, if you know what I'm saying. My lord. Oh, it's golden brown. Badger. My dad's like, oh no, he's just gonna shove it in. My dad's like that now. Tan, you're going on a tangent again. Whoops, my bad. I'm a 33-year-old single man who still live with their parents, and today I'm going to be making something new, or learning that is. Samoan Panipopo coconut bread. But why am I starting to learn how to bake again? Well, it all started with this story. I was at work and I met this young adult Samoan kid, and he gave me an idea of cooking Samoan food because he's like, Tan, I don't really feel like eating these noodles. This is like Samoan noodles. Do you want to try it? And me being a little bit of a foodie, I was like, why not? And it was some tasty noodles. Wow. So I started looking up Samoan cuisine, and it turns out that in Samoan food, they also bake bread. And one of the most popular ones is Panipopo. That's the one I'm going to be trying to make today. Very first time. So let's hope I don't stitch myself up. This is going to be quite exciting. So are you ready to follow me on this adventure of baking some coconut bread? I hope you are. I've already got all my ingredients prepared earlier so that I didn't have to go through the logistics of this is what you need, but I'm going to show you what you need anyway. So first off, it's actually quite simple. You need flour, of course. Boom, 375 grams. About 45 to 50 grams of unsalted butter, but in this instance, I'm going to be using salted butter because that's all I have. So in the recipe, it tells you to add some salt inside, but since this is already salted, I don't want my bread to be too salty. All right, now 50 grams of granulated sugar. Oh, this is diabetic goodness in a bowl. Some warm water and yeast. That's pretty much all you need to make the bread. All right, first things first. We're going to need to warm the water in the microwave. You gotta get it to a lukewarm level. Almost like when you put your finger in it, it feels like it's not quite hot, but it's not too cool either. Sort of hard to explain. Just don't burn yourself when you stick that finger in the water. It's to activate the yeast, which I'll be adding in a moment. Now, you have to activate the yeast by pouring the dry yeast into the warm water and let it sit for about 10 minutes. If you've baked bread before, the first thing you always do is add the dry ingredients. So in this case, all I've got is some flour, boom, boom, and the sugar, boom. In this recipe, it requires a dough mixer, but I'm too poor to afford that. So instead, you can improvise by using a wooden spoon. I found this idea on a video where they were baking French baguette, and they're like, don't worry, you don't need a dough mixer. All you need is the end of a wooden spoon. So we're gonna mix this together until you can't see the sugar and flour anymore. And I've got to wait another 5 more minutes because the yeast hasn't quite bloomed yet. So when that's ready, we're gonna move on to the next step. So it looks like the yeast has bloomed. As you can see, it should look sort of foamy on top. And with every baking recipe, once you've added the dry ingredients, you add the wet ones in next. Here's the flour I mixed earlier. We're now chucking the butter. Ooh, yum. And the yeast. Boom! How exciting. Now with my handy dandy wooden spoon, I'm basically gonna pretend that this is a dough mixer by mixing it in. Keep mixing until it becomes a foam ball. I forgot to mention that 7 grams of yeast is what you need. If your yeast is lower quality because it's made in China, you might add maybe 1 or 2 grams extra. A dough scraper becomes very useful in this situation. You can see that in the bowl, the flour is stuck on the sides. So grab your dough scraper and scrape the edges. Or sticky dough, So pro tip for those who don't want their hands to get too dirty, keep mixing it in with your wooden spoon until it becomes a shaggy like dough. You can tell that it's been mixed in thoroughly when it looks something like this. Now, grab your dough scraper and scrape the sides off the wooden spoon. We're gonna let this shaggy dough rest for about half an hour, and after that, I don't like kneading dough because I don't like how sticky my fingers become. Ew. So there is a method I'm gonna show you which will hopefully work for this recipe. I'll be right back in half an hour. In the meantime, while we're waiting for our dough to rest, and I forgot to mention, remember to put a cloth on top of it so the dough doesn't get dry. Anyway, I'm gonna move on to what I'm gonna say next. To make our time a little bit more efficient, we should be washing our dishes because you don't wanna be baking stuff and all of a sudden, there's just too much stuff to wash and the sink gets overwhelming and then, that high level anxiety comes washing through and you just don't want to clean no more. So that's what we're going to do right now. Clean the dishes. All done. Oh yeah, I forgot the other important part to this recipe, and it's making the coconut sauce. So all we need now is about 200 milliliters of coconut cream. In the recipe, it told me to use water, but I'm going to be using coconut water. Oh, and some granulated sugar. You'll be able to find this recipe in the link below in the description section. It's from Tara's Multicultural Kitchen. So I'd like to give them a shout out by saying thank you very much for this recipe. I don't know how it's going to turn out because I have made some slight modifications to it. But that's what I love about baking and cooking, because you can use the knowledge you have in the past to alter the recipe slightly to make it to your taste. We start by opening up the coconut cream. These cans always give me anxiety because I feel like I'm gonna cut myself. Oh, gosh, this coconut cream looks thick. My lord. I'm gonna have to mix it up real quick with this trusty spoon. Oh, it's got water at the bottom, so really important. Oh no, I got some, coconut smells nice. The coconut fat does settle at the top, so you need to make sure you mix this in thoroughly. And very carefully, because I literally got some coconut juice on my hands. It's a very familiar feeling, if you know what I'm saying. Once it's been thoroughly mixed in together, I'm gonna pour about 200 grams into this little jug I have here. I'll keep the other half in the freezer so I can use it for later on. And now 200 mils of coconut water into this coconut cream. So in the recipe, it did call for 240 mils of coconut cream, 240 mils of coconut water, and 100 grams of sugar. But because I did 200 grams of coconut cream, 200 mils of coconut water, I think that's about a reduction by about 16%. So I'm gonna put about 83 grams of sugar, but just to make it less sweet, because I don't wanna, break my teeth and give myself all these fillings, I'm gonna only add 80 grams of sugar. And to be on the safe side, 79.5 grams of sugar. With my little handy dandy whisk, I'm gonna mix it in. Mixing it until the sugar has hopefully dissolved. This might take a while. When you try to dissolve sugar in like room temperature liquids, it does take a bit of time. Whoa, it smells coconutty. I love that smell. Gonna put this coconut milk in the fridge, covered, which I'll do after I cut this little shot. the dough should be nice and rested. As you can see, it's become a bit of a lump. What you're gonna grab now is some water in a bowl, and you're gonna wet your hands. Here's me water. You're not gonna be adding any more water to it, but some of the water that's gonna be on your hands might add a bit more moisture to the dough. And if it gets a little bit too, let's just say, hydrated, that's not a bad thing because it's gonna make your dough a little bit more moist. So the method I like to use is the knead and fold method. So, or I like to call knead and slap, I should say. That's what the motion we're gonna be doing. So wet your hands, grab underneath, pick up the dough, stuck as, smash it. Now we're gonna turn to the other side, wet your hands again, because I don't wanna have sticky fingers from the dough. Let it stretch, and slap, fold. Wet your hands again. You can see the pattern here now, that every time you fold the dough, wet your hands. And what this does is it gives the dough a bit more integrity so that when you start kneading it later, it won't like essentially split apart in your hands. So I like to fold it maybe a solid. Let it stretch. Ooh, look at that. It's like a really big sack of naan bread. A little bit more. Usually when you use double O flour, the dough is a lot more tenser. Whereas this, you can see it's sort of slowly stretching out. When you use double O flour, which is for pizza dough, it's a little bit more stronger, so to speak. So I think I've already wetted enough time, so now I'm just gonna keep kneading and folding. So now my hands aren't sticking as much anymore. You can see now there's a bit of residue, but it's not a ridiculous amount. We're gonna keep doing this until it becomes nice and tense. I'm gonna roll this into a dough ball, as you can see here. This is the method I use to when I make my pizza dough as well. See how there's a little bit of a folds there? Just twist it. A bit more, fold it in, so it becomes this like sort of round, shiny ball. Now put that there, and what we're gonna do now is let it rest for another half an hour. And the next step is we're gonna roll out the dough. So remember to have some spare flour ahead of time, because if you don't have any flour, you won't be able to roll this up without it sticking to your rolling pin. That's gonna make you rage. Also, remember to cover your bowl with your cloth because you don't want any, reducing the amount of dryness that will happen because it's exposed to the air. There we go. Now it's all tucked in like a cozy burrito before you go to bed. So, I was a little bit wrong about the recipe. Earlier, I said half an hour to wait for the dough to rise, but actually, the recipe specifies 2 hours. I only waited 1 hour and a half because I'm running out of daylight and I need to get this done. So, boom! Fortunately, it has doubled in size. Wow. And the next process to making this dough is putting some flour on the bench. Now, I want to try not to put too much. Oh shit, I just swore, my bad everyone. Now I'm going to spread the flour everywhere. Excellent. This is a must, absolutely must to have, because it makes your life a lot easier when you have a dough scraper. We're going to grab the dough and we're going to put it on the table. Ooh, it's feeling pretty firm. Oh, that's solid. And then I'm gonna put some flour on top of the dough as well, because that way it makes it easier to roll on your rolling pin. So a bit on top. And we're gonna roll it into a rectangular shape. Also, dust your rolling pin. Just a little bit. I'm gonna rub it on. Well, that was pretty useless. It didn't really stick to the pin at all, but whatever. Okay, we're gonna roll it into a rectangular shape. Oh shoot, that is very doughy. Wow, that's exciting, everyone. So I'm gonna try to make it into a rectangular shape. And because I am using a square pan, I'm gonna cut this into 9 pieces. So it'll be 3 by 3, baby. All right, this is actually really easy dough to work with. I was expecting it to be a little bit harder. So it's important to continually dust the top of your dough. Otherwise, it just gets frustrating when your dough sticks and you can't separate it. You're like, ah, gosh, darn it. Making bread is also very messy, I've discovered. You can form this dough into like dough balls or roll into a rectangular shape. And then, you know what cinnamon scrolls are? If you don't, Google it, but essentially you want to roll this dough up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll the dough up. But here we go, roly-poly. Ooh. The dough has sort of stuck to the table, but that's okay. We can work with that with the old handy dandy dough scraper. So if it's stuck, all you need to do is scrape it along. There we go. Roly-poly. See how there's a bit of stuck section there? Well, actually, you can't see it from that angle. Hold on. We take a look right here. That sticky bit there. There we go. Just made my camera super floury, so I'm gonna have to wipe that off. Fortunately, it's my cheap camera, so it's all good. We scrape it up, so that way it doesn't stick quite to the table. There we go, that looks great. Most of it is pretty round and even, except for the end part, so I'm gonna squish it in like that. And I'm totally gonna eyeball this because, that's part of baking, you know. I definitely can see how you can get 12 pieces from it. In the recipe, this is amount to 3 by 4. This is the perfect tray I have. So these dough balls are, the bread buns are gonna be a little bit bigger, and that's totally okay. Anyway, let's try to measure. I should have brought a ruler. I'm so OTCD. I was telling everybody that I'm not like that, but now I'm like, oh, but that's okay. All right, but we'll wing it. So we're gonna try to cut it like around here. Yes. And then hopefully that's one dough ball. Is that already too much? 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I already cut it too thick. Oh well, let's cut it a little bit thinner. Totally eyeballing this, everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. It actually turned out a lot better than I thought. There we go. And they surprisingly feel like they even weight. That's awesome. All right. With the old canola spray, we are going to be spraying some oil on this because we want the baking paper to stick. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, hold on a second. Aha, baking paper. So I'm going to put right. Hold on a second. My father's calling because he needs to get his change. Bà ơi, không có mẹ chồng, bà phải vô lấy, mẹ ở tầng sau. Fun fact, my father does barbering just for fun. As his retirement job, so he does it for the local Vietnamese community, which is great. Anyway, continuing on. We're gonna squeeze that together, and when we get to the sides, I'm gonna fold it in. And so you can see how the canola spray is helping the baking paper stick to the pan. It isn't really there to make the dough non-stick, but that's totally cool. All right, now we're gonna chuck the dough balls in. Oh yeah, bro, I'm becoming a professional baker. Actually, no, I'm just an enthusiast. Oh my gosh. I'd like to say thank you for the culture we have in this world, especially my mate who I became acquainted with at my workplace. That's why it's really important to network. You just don't know who you're going to meet, and it really honestly expands your mind and becomes like a learning experience. Life is learning. That's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I get a bit stitched up on my words. There we go. All right. Now that we've got this in the tray, we're going to wait for another half an hour to let it sink and proof again. Proofing is essentially a fancy word for letting your dough rise a little. I only learned that a couple of weeks ago. I got to cover it up with something. I'm going to use my newspaper. There we go. I'm going to cover that up. There we go. Alrighty, I'll be right back in half an hour. half an hour has now passed by. So the dough should look a little bit different. It does, it looks like it's settled down now. And the next step is to add the coconut sauce. Bam! On top. I'm gonna mix it because it's been sitting in my fridge for a solid 2 hours since I've started making this video. Hold on, let's taste this stuff. Cheers. Oh, that is some sweet stuff. In the recipe, it tells you to pour just enough to cover the dough. Careful, this is where it gets a bit sketchy. And I think the reason for the spiral shape is so that it actually absorbs inside the bread. Oh my gosh, I'm actually using a lot more than I thought I would. Whoops. Hopefully didn't put too much in. This is what the finished result is. If you're Samoan and I'm doing this wrong, I'm so sorry. Leave in the comments below because I like being corrected because that's the only way I can learn. All right, perfect. Now I'm gonna put this in the oven. POV shot. There we go. Oh Lord, I should open the oven first. Oof. I can feel the steam coming out. So it's meant to be in there for about half an hour. So I'm gonna set the time for that. And in about 15 minutes, I'm gonna go and rotate the tray. We gotta bake it until it's golden brown as well. I think that's the usual, universal way to see that bread is done. Alrighty, in less than 1 minute, I'm about to take out the bread. Wait for it. Any second now. Oh Lord. Yeah, there's the beep. Turn that off. Oh man, look at that. My Lord. Oh, it's golden brown. Oh, there's some spring in that. That's amazing. I really want to eat it right now. I really do. But in the recipe and for basically everything you cook, you have to wait half an hour to let it rest so it firms up. That and you'll probably burn your tongue while you're doing it. So let's just wait a little longer. What to do in the next half an hour? I'll be right back. All right, it's been almost 25 to 30 minutes now, and I'm ready to bite into these things. I'm gonna cut it directly in the center. So let's do that. Whoa, that feels so soft. And the bread is no moisture, which is good. It's been cooked. That's what's most important. Whoa, man. Look at that. The smoke's coming out. It's doughy. And when I stab in the middle, it's sort of dry. Amazing. All right, I'm gonna call my mum and dad and they're gonna give this a crack. So, mẹ ơi ba, ra đây nè ăn thử. Hello, mẹ nói cái này, hello. Nói hello đi. Hello. Hello. Yeah, hey. My mom and dad are gonna try my Panipopo. I'm gonna cut it through the center. I'm gonna be so upset if this is raw in the middle. But, oh, looks good. Lovely. And then, đôi lúc mình làm á, mình phải chấm vô cái nước dừa nè. But my dad's keen. You can see his hands getting excited. All right. Ba mẹ lấy một miếng này. Rồi ba. My dad forgot to dip it in. Không, cái này kiểu chấm nước dừa. My dad doesn't wait. He loves to eat just right away. Ba chờ một chút nha. Ba chờ. My dad oh no, he's just gonna shove it in. My dad's like that now.
Nói gì không?
Không, bà gắn đi. Ngon không mẹ? Ngon không ba? Yeah, bà phải ăn chậm chứ ba. I have to remind my dad to eat slowly because he chokes on his own food. He's so excited. But yeah.
Bà ăn thì bà cứ chưa miệng còn đầy nhé.
Mom's like now complaining about my dad. It's almost 40 years of marriage. But all right, I'm gonna try this out now. Oh God. Wow. So this is Panipopo. Don't ăn nữa đâu mẹ nha. I thought my dad was going to grab some more. He's diabetic. I need to make sure he doesn't eat too much sugar. This is a special occasion. Now it's crunchy on the top. I gotta try it without any coconut milk though. Oh, that's so spongy and soft. And a little like jelly in this, like at the bottom, where I had to soak the coconut buns in. It's absolutely gorgeous. Oh my lord. But oh my god, man, I just had a taste of Samoan cuisine and it's bloody amazing. Oh, anyway, apologies for that little debate between my mum and dad and also myself. I was like, Mum, Dad, I mean, you gotta slow down. And he's like, never! Puts it in his mouth like, it's a constant problem, but that's okay. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video of me creating Panipopo. It was incredibly fun to film, and I'm really glad if you made it this far, you made it to the end of my journey and the end of this video. If you want to see some more of random stuff I do around my life, hit the subscribe button. I'll be putting out videos intermittently. I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.